Hey y'all, welcome. I am back. We are going to talk about more health news today, but we are going to go over a podcast, and this is Pearl. For those of y'all, Pearl's mad at me. For those of y'all who haven't met Pearl, she is one of my Persian kitties. Okay, she's not feeling it. Okay, go on, Pearl. Sorry. As you can see, I gave her kind of a lion cut, but it's growing out right now. So if anyone is interested in some V-free Persian cats, we have kittens coming, hopefully from Pearl and my other cat Murray, and the daddy cat Tommy, for those of you who have been following me for a while. So stay tuned for that. I'm also going to have sheepadoodle puppies, and I'm pretty excited for that because they should be born right about Valentine's Day. But all of that aside, let's start talking about our topic today, which is actually one of my favorite comedians, Theo Vaughn, and his recent podcast where he talked about getting off SSRIs, one of my favorite topics. I'm really excited about this because I'm hoping that people like him and Andy Frisella talking about their experience on SSRIs and making the decision to get off will help to shift culture in a way that gets other people excited about getting off these medications, because in reality, they're not really doing a lot of help, but they are doing a lot of harm. All right, so I actually watched a second podcast of his just at the very beginning of a video that he posted today of him and Tony Robbins, and he talked about the SSRIs a little bit again. He said he was 17 days off his SSRI whenever he had filmed this podcast. And actually, Tony Robbins brought up some pretty interesting statistics that I did not gather for you myself. But he said that, and let me grab my notebook. As y'all know, I always use my notebook because I am not the type of person who just stores it all up here. I like to write it down and remind myself. So he said that SSRIs, he reminded Theo Vaughn that they were found recently through a meta-analysis that they're not actually helpful. They did find that 60% of people, and this is quoting what Tony Robbins had said, had no improvement at all with SSRIs. 40% had some improvement, which was about a 50% reduction in their symptoms. And then he said a small number of people were actually felt like they were helped by the SSRIs. But we're going to talk about Theo Vaughn specifically and the SSRI that he's on, Lexapro. So I'm going to play a short clip for y'all, and then we will chat about that.
I take Lexapro, and I don't take a large dose. I think it was 20, and I got down to 10, and then I'm off. And it's been interesting because I've had a lot more feelings, man. I've had a lot more feelings, and some of it I'm grateful for because I was just not having any feelings.
All right. So Lexapro, the medication that he says that he had been on, is one of the top medications prescribed in the country. Stats I found on Google showed it was the number 15 most prescribed prescription in 2021, and that there were about 30 million scripts written for that medication that year in 2021, and about 6.5 million people in the US who were on Lexapro specifically in the US that year as well. Let's play a second clip where Theo talks a little bit about what he's doing as far as while he's getting off the SSRI as preventative measures and to make himself feel better.
I'm making sure that I have just have friends and stuff that know that I'm off of it. So if anything seems too crazy, so I'm just trying to let my feelings just kind of settle or just get back to like a baseline. So I'm hopeful about that. And I've been making sure I do a lot of running and stuff to just keep my energy up.
Okay, and just to let you all know, I've kind of clipped up this short part where he had talked about that. The original part was about a minute and a half. I chopped some pieces out and just kind of took the parts that were a little bit different to share with y'all. So if you do go ahead and watch the full video, you will find that he actually talked a little bit longer on this topic and maybe even multiple times throughout the episode, which I have linked in the comments. All right, so Theo talked about how he's going running to keep his energy up, and he's keeping his friends and everything in the loop just in case his emotions get out of whack, which is important. You do want people that care about you, especially to know what is going on with you when you decide to make a decision like this. So I think that that is a good move. He also talks about running, and this is super important. I want you all to know that we've kind of been trained in the US specifically, or maybe just in our modern era, to think that we really need medications in order to, deal with feelings of depression and things like that. But there are actual ways that you can treat your body that's going to reduce overall symptoms of depression and issues like that, because there really is a neurochemical imbalance. It's just not in the way that they're teaching you is necessary to medicate. Typically, these are nutritional deficiencies or lack of exercise and hormone imbalances, overabundance of stress hormone, not sleeping enough, things like that. Those actions throughout your life, they're going to have processes that continue on from them in various systems that will result in different types of dysfunction, including things like depression, all the way to actual physical ailments.
Dude, on antidepressants, I don't have any feelings. People are like, "Hey, how do you feel?" And I'll just be like, yeah, bruh, I'm just not having a lot of feelings, I think, on antidepressants. So I want to have some more feelings so then I can make some more decisions based on how I feel. So I think that's something that's really like a new adventure.
All right. So notice how Theo talks about, again, and if you watch the longer clip, he talks a lot of times about just not feeling any emotions and how that's blunting his feelings. In the podcast with Tony Robbins, he talks about how it's hard for him to actually have relationships because people, specifically, it sounds like women he's dating will be like, "Do you even like me?" And he just doesn't even know. And so what he's saying here in that clip was so important, because he's saying he wants to be able to feel again so that he can make good decisions based on how he feels. This is true for relationships, but it's actually true for everything. Human beings, we have an intuition inside of us, a gut feeling, or intuition is a word that we use a lot of times, but this actually drives our decisions, and it has more to do with a connection to our soul, to our spirit, than it does just utilizing our brain as like its neurochemical value. So these medications actually separate a person from their intuition. In my opinion, all medications do. And if you look back at some old writings from a man named Rudolph Steiner, who was so interesting. He was kind of like a philosopher, I guess, in the early 20th century. He has writings about 100 years old. And he talks about how actually even illness and things like that are part of the process of a human being connecting to their soul. So check Rudolph Steiner out if you haven't already. I have a document with some of his thoughts, interesting ideas, linked in the description as well. All right, so what are some side effects other than this lack of feelings that can happen to a person who takes SSRIs? So this is just very basic research. There's obviously a lot more to it than this, but here's some things that I found just by a simple Google search. Sweating, dry mouth, sleep disturbances, weight changes, even bleeding, which I thought was really interesting. I hadn't read that in the past. I saw this just in connection with Lexapro. GI bleeding, bleeding of the gums, basically bleeding disorders. And this is associated even more to an extent with people who are on like NSAIDs, aspirins, or blood thinners and that medication. It might have to do with how the medication is metabolized in the liver. It could be through the same pathway as some of those medications as well, and might potentiate the effects. I'm not sure. I didn't look into it, but that would be my initial thoughts there. All right, some other issues that can happen: loss of libido and serotonin syndrome. This one is very serious. It's pretty rare, but it's a very serious side effect where basically too much serotonin can cause the person's muscles to seize up. They can get like a very high, pathologically high fever, and that can be a very dangerous situation there. And actually, backing it up, another issue with these SSRIs is that there is actually a black box warning that they increase the risk of suicidal ideation, suicidal thoughts in people 24 and under. And that is a very serious risk for a medication that's actually supposed to treat and prevent those issues. So what are some things that you can do if you are on SSRIs, your doctor's weaning you off, and you feel like crap, you're having withdrawal symptoms? Basically, you're going to want to make sure that you're getting good protein intake and getting a variety of amino acids, specifically amino acids that are required to synthesize different neurotransmitters, and especially essential amino acids, because that means those are amino acids that your body cannot make itself. It relies on getting those through the diet. In order to really break down those amino acids, you're going to want to make sure you have good stomach acid levels, good gut health, and that you are able to break down those amino acids and absorb them. You're also going to want to make sure that you are having good vitamin intake, because vitamins are essential cofactors in a lot of processes in the body, specifically the process of synthesizing many different neurotransmitters. So if we don't have certain vitamin cofactors like vitamin D, you actually are losing out at a rate limiting step where you aren't then able to synthesize that neurotransmitter maybe in the amount that you're going to need, especially when your physiology is already thrown off by having been on one of these selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. You're going to want to balance your circadian rhythm. Your sleep-wake day-night cycles are very important to your overall health. You should have melatonin rise in the evening and cortisol rise in the morning. You don't want to be running off cortisol all day long. And you definitely don't want it surging when you're trying to sleep. So going to bed early, shutting off blue lights, things like that, making sure you sleep till after 5 a.m. When you get that first sort of cortisol surge to wake you up, you want to naturally balance those hormones. Mindfulness is super important. And things like doing breath work, journaling, changing your mindset, those are going to be very important. A huge factor to me is just believing that you'll get better, believing that you can make it through the hard times, and having faith, really connecting to that faith and your belief in yourself. Exercise, super important. Theo touched on this and he talked about running. I think running is actually my favorite exercise for mood enhancement, although it's also important to get strength training in. That's going to aid your overall hormone balance, aid your body, make you strong, make you healthy. So you're going to want to, my recommendation is strength training 3 to 4 times a week and 2 to 3 cardio sessions, at least 20 or 30 minutes. So that works out to about 5 days a week of exercise, or you can kind of stack those and take days off in between. So those are some tips, and I just want to wrap this up by saying, again, I'm very excited to have seen this podcast, to see somebody as big as Theo Von taking on such a controversial but important topic. I had recently seen a podcast also by Andrew Frisella. I'll probably try to cover that, where he talks about some of the difficulties and the struggles of getting off his SSRIs and how he kind of felt and everything for months going through that. His recounts of how he felt were actually what led me to start researching, or one of the things that led me to start researching how people can help themselves to feel better and thrive, more to a greater extent through that getting off the SSRI period without feeling like they have to relapse onto the medication. So you can check that out. Like I said, I'm going to link that one in the description also. And so it's just, it's a whole new world. I hope that people are going to be reconnecting with their intuition, reconnecting with their soul, getting rid of these medications that are serving to kind of like sever the soul from the body, from the mind, and that we're going to be moving forward through this, second part of this decade in a new way, where we see health as the whole body, the whole person, and that we become whole people again. I hope you all like this video. I'm going to talk a lot more on this topic, and I am going to talk on all the other health topics too. I'd like to do health news throughout the week also, and debunk it the actual way, using that word that they usually use against us in the wellness space back on them. So if you did like this video, please go ahead and subscribe, hit the like button, and feel free to follow me on Instagram or Twitter and send me a message if you have any specific topics that you would like me to cover. Otherwise, have a great day, and I will be back soon.